Welcome to Student Organization Essentials series. Today's topic is successful virtual marketing and social media strategies. I'm Teresa Murray, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Kim.
Hello.
And we're from the Department of Student Centers and Activities. In today's world, we know that digital marketing is increasingly important. Obviously, everything right now is being done mostly virtually. So it's really important to make sure you have a virtual presence, but it's also really important to make sure that you stand out because everybody is using the same platforms and the same avenues to make their messages available. One thing we did just want to briefly mention is at Rutgers, you have the Get Involved platform, and that's a great thing to be able to leverage because you can share events, you can share upcoming messages. So that's a really great way to continue to leverage your work, and it's a great place that you can link back to when you're posting things on social media or sending out emails. So you can always have that as like a main hub for your events and your programming. Don't forget about emails. We talked a little bit about, Crystal, you said you send out emails through Canvas, or you use Canvas as like your messaging platform. And I know that RCSA has a listserv. Those are great avenues because even though people tend to get a lot of emails, they read what's important to them. So definitely make sure you have a presence there, even if it's not something you're doing regularly. I think it still helps to have that message available for people. And if you don't have a platform like a listserv or you wanted to do something else, there are also free services out there where you can, design emails and have an email list of like under 1,000 contacts, I think it is, and you can do that for free. And then finally, we're going to be talking about social media, which is like the main point of today's talk, because that seems to be where the most people are. You're going to get the most traction and attention, and also you can leverage a lot of different resources there as well. Okay, so social media, obviously, very important. It's something that people are checking every day. You have to determine what platforms are best for you, though. So, Crystal, you mentioned you're on Facebook and Instagram. RCSA, I believe, is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, if I'm correct. But you have to know where your audience is and where is the best place to engage them. So you can do that if you have a business account set up. On social media, you're allowed to see metrics. So you can see who's following you, their age demographics, things like that. And that would really help, I think, to determine where you need to be to reach your audience. And you can see too that everybody is on every platform, right? So it's not just, oh, Facebook's for older adults anymore. You can see from this graphic here that 51% of people between the ages of 13 and 17 use Facebook. And 79% of those 18 to 29 use Facebook. So even though there's a lot of conversation about is Facebook still relevant, don't forget about Facebook. Absolutely don't. Snapchat and TikTok are also really important, especially for the college-aged audience. But don't forget that if you're using those platforms natively, those things disappear, right? You can only target for a certain amount of time. So you have to make sure that you're posting content in other places so that you can remain relevant and remain front of mind. Also, don't forget that some of these platforms, if you're Googling things, Facebook comes up in Google searches too. Sometimes Twitter and Instagram do as well, depending on what your organization's traffic looks like, what your linking and social, your SEO looks like. So you may want to use those so people can find you more easily too. So it has the benefit of serving almost like an ad hoc website. So things like that are always very helpful to keep in mind too. You also may want to consider Reddit if you're not, even if you don't post regularly, just being able to respond to things. There's a New Brunswick forum for Rutgers, and even just, thinking about if someone's asking like, how can I make friends on campus? This might be a good way if you see the post to jump in and say, well, RCSA is having an interest meeting next week. You may want to check it out if you're a commuter student, something like that. So that's a good way that you can make those personal connections as well. And don't forget that different platforms have different objectives. For example, LinkedIn is not on here, but if you're going to be doing a career fair or an internship program, LinkedIn might be a good resource to have as well. So you really do need to keep in mind that each platform has a different audience to it, but also each platform has a different objective behind it as well. So what makes a good social media post? Social media is the best way to tell your story because you can constantly update it and you control the message behind it. So if you tried to update a website every time you were doing something else or you wanted to change a picture or make a post, all you'd be doing is updating your website. But social media allows you to do that in like real time. You can do it from your phone, you can schedule things ahead of time. So social media is a great way to tell your group's story. Make connections with people. You know, if you're posting photos of your group members or photos of your events or projects that you do, you're building a community around those. It's also a great way to share information on upcoming events or resources that you have. How can you find out more information? Where is the event going to be? Where is it going to take place? Crystal, when you asked earlier about Instagram, unfortunately you can't hyperlink an Instagram posts. You can put a link in a graphic if it's not a long link so that people can reference it quickly. You can also change the link in your bio, or Sam suggested on our last version of this call, consider getting a Linktree account so you can have that, your Linktree link in your Instagram bio, and then you can actually have several different links through that. So that might be a good resource to consider as well. You should always make sure that your content is accessible to all. If you're posting an event flyer, so for example, the screenshot that's here, the Life After the Closet graphic, we want to include information on that event in the text of our post as well across all platforms. So that if anyone's using a service to read the text from their computer, that gets picked up. If you're posting a video, consider using closed captioning, or you should use closed captioning. And Facebook and YouTube have services available to convert your audio to closed captioning for you. You just have to go through and clean that up. So it makes it really easy to make everything accessible. Should you use a post or a story on Instagram and Facebook? Great question. Posts are great for long-term content. So if you always want to have something available, you should be using a post. So if you've got an event coming up and you want people to be able to see it all the time, make sure it's a post. You can always share your post as a story or use a different story graphic, but always make sure that there's a place that people can go back to reference it. So if your event's like a week ahead of time, that story is going to be gone long before that event happens. Even if you send a post to a highlight, people may not look there. So definitely keep that in mind as you're sharing content. Stories are great for engagement. It's a really good way to build rapport with other accounts. You can tag them, you can share their stories, you can do takeovers and have students control or send videos that you can post. You can do quizzes or countdowns or things like that. So stories are really great to build community and build engagement. But again, they disappear. So you have to have some longer form content available as well. Another question we often hear is, how often should people be posting? Which is a very good question, and the answer is not the same for everyone. My answer is usually you should post regularly because it needs to be what works for your group. So if you have content that you can post 2 or 3 times a week, that's incredible. You should absolutely post 2 or 3 times a week. If you don't have enough content and maybe you can only post once a week, that's fine too. Do what you can. Because if you don't post frequently enough, people are going to forget about you. So you want to make sure you're a regular presence and you have relevant and updated information. So even if you don't have an event coming up for a month, what else can you post? Can you do throwback photos? Can you share tips? Our CSA I know does like Tip Tuesday, I think. What else can you share that is out there that is relevant and important to your audience that makes you look relevant and important as well? You can also stagger content. So I wouldn't post the same time every day. Think about looking at those metrics, again, if you have a business account, to see when you get a lot of engagement and post on times that work for you. Another way to see what times work if you don't have one of those business accounts set up is to just see when you're getting a lot of attention. Maybe you post something at 8 o'clock at night and you get a ton of likes right away. That's a good time for you to continue to post it. Maybe if you post something first thing in the morning, you don't really get a lot of engagement around it until the afternoon. The likes don't start popping up until like 2. That's good for you to know as well. So you should definitely consider that as you're posting your content as well. And then the final note I wanted to say about this before I turn it over to Kim is in today's world, it's really easy to be online all the time, especially if you're going to be sharing content, and that can be a little overwhelming sometimes. So you should also keep in mind that each platform has a native way to schedule posts. So Facebook allows you to schedule both Facebook and Instagram posts ahead of time, and Twitter allows you to do it as well. So for example, if I know I have an event coming up in 3 weeks and I've already got all the content and graphics, I may want to schedule a bunch of things out right now while I have the time, and I can post them up until the day of the event and just go in and change them if I need to, but otherwise that's something I can set and forget until later. There are also platforms out there that allow you to do it for free, but I think there's usually a limit. Like some of them you're only allowed to schedule 30 posts at a time or things like that, but I would definitely recommend considering scheduling platforms because it makes life so much easier and you can see what you have coming in terms of posts. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to talk about the look of the graphics.
Okay, so I know that this isn't a design session, but we do need to create graphics for you to post in your social media. So we're going to talk about the content. So don't overthink it. You don't have to be a graphic designer to make something look good. The best graphics are simple. So make sure that everything that you put in your graphic is legible, and be careful about what font you choose and the size of your text. Just remember that people have to be able to read it on their phones. So just remember the size of it. It's really small. And videos are a great way to reach your audience. If you're making videos, just keep them no longer than 30 seconds or less. Nobody's going to watch anything more than a minute. Usually, if you look at the metrics on YouTube, they cut out after a minute. That's just too long. So the shorter, the better. If you are creating in Adobe software, that's great. If you don't know how to use it, there are a lot of free software out there. Canva is a great one. You might already be using it. Canva is great for graphics. TikTok is great for videos. There's also a bunch of other free video and graphic apps out there. Those are just kind of like popular ones. And then Teresa mentioned the Instagram story. You can just easily make something in there. Just choose a photo and just stick some Giphy stickers on there, GIFs and stickers on there, and it's automatically cool. And then just be careful. Don't put a lot of words on there. Don't put a lot of text. People don't like to read a lot. Okay, next slide. So if you are creating your own content, just be mindful of the contrast in your graphics. High contrast is like black against white, so that they're complete opposites in color, so people can read them easily. There's nothing wrong with low contrast. It just may be a little harder to read, but if that's like the artsy feel that you're going for, go for it. Just remember, people can't read it as well. Okay. And then finally, we're just going to talk about the hierarchy of images and type. So just if you have an event, and make sure that the title of your event is like the star of the image, or if you have like a person that you want to showcase, just whatever you want to be the star, make that one the biggest thing on the page or on the graphic. So where it says you will read it first, you have complete control as a designer to control where somebody reads first, second, and third. So yeah, once you've caught their attention, they can focus on the smaller text, such as the date, time, and location. Make sure you always have date, time, and location for your events. I think that's all I have for hierarchy.
Thanks, Kim. One other thing you always want to make sure you have is somewhere people can get more information. So if it's a link, or check us out on Facebook. If you're posting this on Instagram, make sure people know how to get more information if they need it too. Okay, cool. All right, sometimes my clicking doesn't work right away. Let's see. Okay. How can you build a community online? Again, not to keep beating the drum, but in today's world, everything's being done online. So how can you not only share information, but how can you use these platforms as a way to build community or extend your community. And I know this might be particularly helpful for targeting some of those new students that we talked about, but also building a presence on Facebook to get more community behind that. So, you want to engage with people however you can. So if someone comments on your post, you should always like it or respond to it depending on what it is. Post photos of your community members. People like to see themselves. They like to see their friends. So even if you're not on campus right now, do a throwback photo. Like, here's an event we had last year. That was so much fun. Can't wait to be together with everybody again. Something like that. Sam has mentioned this in the past. Theme days are great. So if you're going to do a Throwback Thursday, maybe you do a Feel Good Friday, and it's a community service project that you've done in the past, or things like that. Find a way to engage your audience and bring them back to your page and bring them so they want to know, they want to see what's happening next. And if you're able to, if your community members are okay with it, this might be also a cool way to tag them in posts, and then they can reshare, especially if you're going to be doing it on Facebook or Instagram. They can reshare that pretty quickly. Twitter allows you to retweet too, so that's great if you know your community's on Twitter. So for example, if I was posting a throwback picture of me and Kim said it was okay to tag her, I tag her in my post, and then she can just share it right to her story. And then everyone has the ability to see the content that my group has posted, even if they don't know who I am. So that could be a great way to start building more traction as well. You can also do profiles of community members. Introduce people to your e-board, or if you're doing an upcoming community service project, who's organizing it, or who's running for your upcoming election. Introduce them. Give them a chance to do a takeover or share a quote or a photo. Obviously, if you're sharing photos, make sure you have permission. We have a media release form we can share with you as well. And Karen and Sam, I believe, have it too. But you want to make sure you have permission of that. The worst thing to do is to have a picture posted and then someone says you need to take that down, especially if you've got engagement around it. So please make sure you have that ahead of time. Also, make sure you tag other organizations. So our CSA, when you are looking to maybe target specifically some new students, maybe tag NSO, see if they'll reshare it. If there's other groups that are working specifically with first-year students, that could be a great idea. If you are on Facebook and you are looking to partner, you're hosting a community service event, maybe you want to tag community service at Rutgers so that they'll like it. Think about different ways that you can leverage the community that Rutgers is, because it's a huge place with a lot of great departments and offices and groups. So how can you really leverage those individuals to build out your own audience? People may not reshare everything you post, but they can at least like it, right? So that's a great way to get started. You also want to use engagement tools that are already built into the platforms. Like Kim mentioned, the stories that you can create. They have stickers, they have graphics, you can do filters. But there's things on Instagram, like you can do a quiz or a poll. See what your audience wants to see. Do you want to have more events? Yes or no? What do you want to see on our Instagram page? Pick up one of these 4 items. That's a great way to have engagement too, and it helps you find out what you really want what your audience really wants to see. Another one that I really like to do, but it requires a lot of back-end work, is to launch campaigns where people submit photos or share photos using hashtags or tagging you. The reason this takes a lot of work is because you never want to start a campaign like that and not have anything planned so that it completely falls flat, right? So if I'm doing a campaign and I want everybody to wear Rutgers gear for the next 3 weeks, I want to make sure that my e-board is going to be wearing Rutgers gear and sharing posts for the next 3 weeks. Like if it's only 2 people a week, I want to make sure that there's actually content behind that. And then again, a great way that those individuals can share on their pages with their friends, thereby building your audience. Because people may not know you exist, but if someone that they know and that they trust is showing up, oh, they're a member of this group, that's really cool, I want to find out more too, that's a great entryway in. I know budgets are probably already allocated for the year, but if there is the ability, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter all allow you to buy ads or boosts, sometimes they're called, if they're smaller amounts. And you can actually target those specifically to your areas or people who are interested in your areas. So you may want to, look at students who like Rutgers University, and you may want to promote your event to them for like 5 days or something like that. And you'd be surprised how inexpensive they can actually be. So that might be something to consider down the road to help building out your traction a little bit more as well.
Okay, so some not so fun stuff, but important. Be on the lookout for cyberbullying. It's harassment and it's not acceptable. So mean, hurtful comments and spreading rumors are some of the most common types of cyberbullying. So if you see any of those signs, just reach out to your advisor immediately. Because you're all running social media, right? Negative responses and comments, you have to decide whether or not you want to respond to those. Sometimes it's just better not to respond. And other times, somebody might just need more clarification. So a well-crafted response might help the situation. Either way, it's just better not to delete the negative comment unless it is really offensive. And if you're unsure, again, talk to your advisor. So for privacy and confidentiality, keep in mind that if you're promoting your organization, your page is public. So everything that you share and everything you share and do on this page is visible by everyone. And then the non-compliance with school policies. This page represents the students in the group, so it's not just you. So make sure that you're compliant with Rutgers policies. As far as photo usage, never post something that you're not comfortable with somebody in your group or your family or anybody seeing. Just remember it's public. And if you do want to use somebody's photo, we have model release forms. You can ask us for them. We can send them to you. So we need people's permissions to post their photos, basically. And then finally, really important, but not everybody thinks of this, if the access to your accounts, if you're the only one in your group with the access to the passwords and to all your pages, and you graduate, the next year no one's going to know what they are, and they have to track you down. So just make sure that maybe just all the officers in your group have the passwords so that they can be passed down to other people. But don't share the passwords with everyone. Just officers. That's it.
So that